world of video game development is vast and impenetrable. Unfortunately, with this mystery comes disappointment, as the complexity of moving parts involved in bringing any video game to the market mean that delays are often inevitable. A lot of studios want more and more time to just get those final details right, while others have been slacking and thumbing their nose at impending deadlines. Particularly this year, where a whole pile of delays have just landed in our laps, and I'm gonna tell you about them. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 9 video games that just got delayed. Number 9, The Occultist. German developer Daedalic Entertainment have brought us pretty unusual games for the last 15 years, including the Blackguard series, an adaptation of Ken Follett's Pillars of the Earth, which I personally really enjoyed. Then of course they do the Deponia games, and there's the disastrous Lord of the Rings Golem, which kinda left things on a sour note. Thanks to years of cutbacks and the abject failure of Golem, they closed down their development division 2 years ago, but they've still got a few titles in the pipeline. These include The Occultist, developed by Dalois Studios. First announced in August 2024, The Occultist was teed up for release this year, in which players became Alan Rebels, as he journeys to the island of Godstone, seeking the truth behind his father's disappearance. The trailer for the first-person horror promises fog-drenched streets, candlelit gothic buildings, and plenty of scares, as you navigate the island with a mystical pendulum, solving puzzles, and taking on whatever ghouls and cultists you come across. Despite the latest trailer dropping in March, the game has now been pushed back. It's now slated for a 2026 release across consoles and PC, and it's disappointing news, but given Daedalic's track record with the whole Golem debacle, a little more time to get things right pre-release is probably a good idea. Number 8, The Altus. Founded by former members of CD Projekt and Metropolis Software, Polish video game developer and publisher 11-Bit Studios has had a successful, if low-key, decade and a half in the business. They brought us survival and tower defense games like Anomaly, Warzone Earth, This War of Mine, and the Frostpunk series, so a lot of depressing stuff in there, but very good. It was no surprise then to discover their latest project is The Altus, a timed survival game where players have to mine resources and expand their base before a deadly sun rises. Dovetailing neatly with Bong Joon-ho's Mickey 17, the game follows Jan Dolsky, a miner builder who creates alternate versions of himself, the alters of the title, to ensure his survival on an inhospitable planet. Announced at the PC Gaming Show of 2022, the Altus was set for a 2024 release before it was pushed in the first quarter of 2025. Since the first quarter, as you've probably noticed, has been and gone, 11-Bit have changed their projection to an unspecified 2025 date, citing the need for additional time to further refine mission parameters, ensure all essential systems are up to scratch, and integrate some new enhancements. Number 7, Crysis IV. Something of a Halo parallel, the Crysis series kicked off a lot later than its popular stablemate, but it's had its own array of successes over the years with 3 main series entries plus Crysis Warhead and 3 remaster releases. Fans have just been hyped for the arrival of Crysis IV, which developer Crytek announced back in January of 2022, 9 years after the previous installment. IV promised to bring the first-person shooter into the 20s, making best use of all the technological innovations we've seen across the last decade or so, in order to make it into an event all unto itself. Unfortunately, like a lot of other game developers, Crytek has had a rough few years, with studio closures, financial losses, and layoffs. The layoffs in particular have impacted their upcoming slate, with around 15% of the workforce lost and a series of streamlining measures to enable them to remain financially solvent. It means Crysis IV has been delayed indefinitely, but better they put it on the back burner than release a half-assed game that lets fans down and potentially puts an end to the studio altogether, which has started happening, which is terrible. Number 6, Fable. A big hit for the Xbox way back when, Fable offered cradle-to-the-grave adventure gaming set in the fictional Albion, a state comprising autonomous cities with vast areas of countryside in between, where Hobbs' State of Nature operates in full force. Bandits, battles, heroes, villains, looting, puzzles, you name it, Fable had it. Despite enjoying a decade's success and 2 sequels, the series declined post-2012, and original developers Lionhead Studios was closed down. What a boon then, when in July of 2020 it was announced that British studio Playground Games would be developing a reboot, backed by by Microsoft's Xbox Game Studios. June last year, it was then announced that we would be seeing the game on Xbox and PC this year. But alas, it's yet to materialize and prospects don't exactly look good. Head of Xbox Game Studios Craig Duncan has said that we can now expect the game in 2026, with additional time required to ensure it really is, quote, the most beautifully realized version of Albion you've ever seen. The game's definitely happening, but whether we actually get to see it next year is still a bit up in the air. Number 5. Ark II. Fans of 2017 survival game Ark Survival Evolved were thrilled when Ark II was announced at the Game Awards in 2020, putting Vin Diesel in a bare-chested and primal yet Riddick-reminiscent role, helping Ali Carvalho battle dinosaurs and dodos on a faraway planet. But since then, it's just been one delay after another. The game's in co-development between original Ark dev studio Wildcard and Grove Street Games and will be using Unreal Engine 5. It was originally planned for a 2022 launch, which then shifted to 2023, and then was rescheduled to late 2024 for PC and Xbox Early Access. Since then, news and updates have been sparse, with the proposed release date sailing on by. As of writing, the game hasn't entered Early Access and has no official scheduled date. Reports state that the primary reason for the multiple delays and lack of a concrete release window are due to the transition from Unreal Engine 4 to 5, which has been more challenging and taken considerably longer than planned. But with all the radio silence from developers, the hype is understandably waning. Number 4. Tales of the Shire. Anyone who remembers the 2003 Hobbit game knows that departing from the established IP aesthetic for Lord of the Rings is not always the best idea, and doubly so when developers decide to make the characters chubby and cute. Nevertheless, after years of quite serious visually on-brand games like Shadow of Mordor and recent disaster of Gollum, which we can only assume was supposed to look somewhat like Peter Jackson's trilogy, gamers are definitely open to trying something different. Well, something different Tales of the Shire definitely is. Despite being developed by the wonderful Weta Workshop, an SFX outfit that was directly involved in both the physical and the digital effects of the LOTR trilogy, the game is taking a different tack, placing players in a rosy, cozy bywater in the Shire, where congenial hobbits live side by side, and we get the opportunity to gamble, garden, harvest, cook, and do everything that's not normally considered viable for a Rings game. The title was first set for a 2024 release before being delayed to the 25th of March. Since then, however, Weta have released a statement setting the 29th of July of this year as the new release, and apparently they're hard at work pimping up their graphics in the meantime. Number 3. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. Long before it was a video game, Vampire the Masquerade had a storied life as a tabletop RPG. Created by Mark Reinhagen and released in 1991, the game put players in a steampunk version of the modern world, as vampires battling vampire hunters and fellow players. The game's success paved the way for a whole host of video game adaptations, including Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, which was developed by Troika Games, published by Activision, and used Valve's Source engine, the same engine used for Half-Life 2. The game released on Windows in 2004, sold only 80,000 units, and was Troika Games' final production before it collapsed in 2005. Nonetheless, since its release, the game has enjoyed a pretty substantial cult following, and there's fans who've provided unofficial fixes and support, and now a sequel, Bloodlines 2, which is in development from British studio The Chinese Room. The game's coming to multiple platforms and is an action RPG set to right every wrong of the original title and do its tabletop origins justice. There is a catch though, it's been postponed again. The game's been subject to delay after delay since it was announced, with release dates as far back as 2020, which have of course crawled by, and a bunch of different developers are passing on the project like a football. The most recent announcement posits a release for October of this year, but let's just say we won't be terribly surprised if that doesn't come about. Number 2. Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra. Marvel may have courted epic successes at the box office across the last 17 years, although those are admittedly waning, but the video games attached have been considerably less consistent. failing to replicate that joined-upness that made the film so successful. If we're gonna believe the hype, though, Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra promises to be another for the slight but growing number of victories that Marvel games have been seeing of late, joining the Spider-Man series in glory. The action-adventurer takes things back to the war when Hydra, both coded and literal Nazis, were in full swing, tearing across Europe and putting the world in existential harm's way. Players get to jump into the jackboots of Captain America and Black Panther as they fight their common enemy on the front and from the shadows. Neat! So where is it? That's the rub. Despite being announced in 2021, Rise of Hydra has been pushed back from its 2025 release date all the way into 2026, with a statement declaring the extra time is required to polish things up a bit. So let's just hope the flailing MCU is still standing by then. Number 1. Grand Theft Auto 6. The big kahuna, the alpha daddy, the one you've all been waiting for, Grand Theft Auto 6 is without a doubt the most hotly anticipated game of all time. And it's deeply funny how other games are definitely changing their release dates, absolutely terrified to be competing with this thing. But how could they not be? The sandbox gaming, infinite possibilities of clothing, cars, kills, and chaos, sharp storytelling, and fully formed characters, as well as next-level graphics and mechanics, have always made the series a top pick. 6 promises more of this, but in a whole new package, putting female protagonist Lucia Caminos behind the wheel in a fictionalized Florida. Fans know the series pretty darn well by now, and its overwhelming and perpetual global successes across the past few decades have meant that another title in the series is always inevitable. And yet, the comparably slender 5-year wait between 4 and 5 now seems like absolute chicken feed, as Rockstar have gone toe-to-toe with the likes of George R.R. Martin and Tool to see just how long they can keep a praying fan base on hold. Turns out it's 13 years and counting. GTA 6 has just recently been delayed again, with the new date being set for 2026, on the proviso that the studio want to bring players the quote, level of quality you expect and deserve. At this rate, it better transmit lifelike scenarios directly into our brainstems, because we've been waiting. Thanks.